All right. Looks like we can make a start. So, welcome everyone to Meshed RTOManager AVETMISS CRICOS in VET webinar for 2025. My name is Shivangi Garg, and I am the Compliance and Integration Consultant here at Mesh Group. So, in today's session, as you can see, and as you're aware of, we are talking about AVETMISS submission, which is due on 28th of February 2025, a month from today. Webinar recordings and the slides will be made available after the session, and it will be sent to all those of you who have registered and are present in the session today. If you have any questions, feel free to pop your questions in the chat box along with your contact details and your college name so that soon after the session we can get back to you regarding your queries. So in today's session, we'll be looking at these 8 items as you can see on your screen. The very first thing for us is to understand the data collection process and timeframes, along with understanding what AVETMISS really is. Then we will have a look on AVETMISS data reporting process. So what is the process that NCVR has provided, and based on the guidelines, how we can use the meshed RTOManager system to extract the data. Number 3 would be extracting the NAT files from the system. So how can you go into the system and use certain parameters and filters available to extract the desired NAT files? We'll also have a look on the NAT files data mapping. So all 10 NAT files starting from NAT 10 till NAT 130, we will see what are the elements in each NAT files and where is the data coming from in the meshed RTOManager system. We'll then have a look on submission tools and login details. So in this section, we'll talk about the AVS portal where you actually need to go and upload your data for NCVR data submission. We'll then have a check on the process of data submission to AVS. So AVS also has certain guidelines on what filters you need to select when you're submitting your end of year collection. So we'll have a look on that. We'll also talk about some of the common errors and warnings that we have seen in most of our clients' data, which may be of assistance. And finally, we can see how the mesh support team can help you during the AVETMISS reporting process. So let's make a start by understanding the data collection processes and timeframes. So what is AVETMISS? AVETMISS is a national framework for consistent collection and dissemination of vet information throughout Australia. All registered RTOs under the Standards for Registered Training Organizations 2015 are required to report accurate and complete data so that the vet sector in Australia can operate smoothly. As an RTO, you have an option to report your data either quarterly, which can be for each quarter, for example, January to March, April to June, so forth, or you can report your data annually, which is the end of year data collection, which is due now on 28th of Feb. The data that you report to NCVR is used for updating students' USI transcripts, which you also have an option to do manually based on the data that you're reporting. So as we have talked about a few times already, the data reporting deadline for this year is 28th of Feb 2025. The submission window is currently open for you to go to the AVS or AVETMISS validation software and upload and submit your data. The data that we are reporting currently to NCVR is the data for collection year 2024, which is any unit or training activity between 1st of January 2024 till the 31st of December 2024 needs to be reported. If you want to understand more on AVETMISS, NCVR and AVS, you can go on to this link provided into this slide, which takes you to the AVETMISS fact sheet for RTOs, where you can find more information. So let's look at the AVETMISS reporting process. So having understood what AVETMISS is and what are the data guidelines that are provided by NCVR, now we can try and understand what the process of AVETMISS reporting is. So the first step in the process is extracting the NAT files from RTOManager. Now, a precondition to extracting the NAT files from RTOManager is having all data in the mesh system accurate and consistently recorded. Once you have extracted the NAT files, you can upload the NAT files in NCVR or AVS engine, which will then give you the file status for each file. In the file status, you would be able to check for errors or warnings. If there are any errors or warnings in the data that you have uploaded to AVS, you will need to fix that data in the RTOManager system. And once the data is fixed, the process is repeated where you will need to re-extract the NAT files and re-upload them to NCVR engine to finalize submission. There can be a bit of back and forth in this process, so make sure you have a lot of time in your hand so that you can allocate the time and resources as needed to fix the data and finalize your data submission before due date. Now let's have a look on extracting data from the RTOManager system. So once you log into the mesh system as an admin or an S-admin user, you would be able to see the AVETMISS data reporting tile on your home page itself. For CRICOS platforms, it will be under the feature shortcuts, and for VET platform users, it will be on the home page itself. But ensure that you have the S-admin or admin user roles to go into the AVETMISS reporting tab. Once you are in the AVETMISS reporting tab, you will see a new UI where you will see a variety of filters that you can use to extract data. So the first filter, which is AVETMISS type to export, allows you to select the format of the files that you want to extract. Currently, as we are doing NCVR or national data submission, the AVETMISS type to export needs to be AVETMISS for national purpose. If you extract your files in AVETMISS for state format, the data files will look different, and you may have errors in your NAT10 itself where your RTO code will not align with TGA. So please make sure that you're extracting your data files in the correct format. Second filter is the report type filter. Currently, as we are reporting the annual data collection, so the report type filter has to be final report or yearly data. Collection year in this case needs to be 2024 so that it covers all the data activity between 1st of January 2024 till 31st of December 2024. You can leave all the states checked by default as available in the screenshot. And please make sure to extract data for non-claim files only. If you are extracting data for AVETMISS claim funded, this is incorrect as the claim funded data goes to the respective state training authority and not to NCVR. So NCVR only accepts fee for service or non-funded data. Once you have selected the correct filters and parameters, you simply need to click on Export to Text NAT files. This will download or generate a NAT zip folder which will contain a set of 10 NAT files. Export to Excel files is an option that you can use to view the data just for your own purpose. However, you cannot upload the Excel files to NCVR. To upload data to NCVR, you must extract it in the TXT format. So once the data is extracted, you will see the zip folder containing 10 NAT files. Now what we'll do is we'll go through each NAT file to understand what each NAT file has and where does the data come from in the mesh system. The first file in the set of 10 files is NAT10 file, which is called the training organization file or the RTO file. This file contains data about the training organization or the RTO itself, which includes your training organization identifier and the training organization name. This data comes from the admin college info setup in the Mesh RTOManager platform, which can only be modified by S-admin users. So if you have any issues within this data here, you will need to go to the college information section in the system and update the information to match with TGA accordingly. NAT20, which is the second file, is the training organization delivery location file. As the name suggests, this file contains information on any delivery locations or training venues for your RTO that were used within the collection year. This will have information such as your training organization identifier, which comes from RTO code again from the college info setup, and more details on the delivery location identifiers such as the postcode, address of the delivery location name, and the country. All this information comes from the manage venue or training location setup in our system. There could be issues such as the postcodes or the states mismatch. which may be triggered in your NAT files. In these cases, you will simply need to go to the Manage Venue or Training Location section and update the information accordingly to reflect in NAT 20. Third file is NAT 30 file, which is called the program file or the course file. This file contains any courses or programs that were delivered by your RTO in the collection period. This contains information such as the program identifier, which is the national code for the VET program name, which is the course name for the VET program, and the nominal hours of the course. All these three fields for the course must match the data as available on TGA. If there is a mismatch between what you have recorded in the mesh system and what TGA has, you will see some errors or warnings in NAT 30. NAT 60, which is the fourth file, is called the module, unit of competency, or the unit file. This file contains information on any units or modules that your organization delivered within the collection period. In this file, we have elements such as subject identifier, which is the VET unit code or the national code for the VET unit, subject name, which is the unit name in the mesh system, and more details on the subject such as the field of education, VET flag, and nominal hours. Again, all the details in NAT 60 must match the details that are available on TGA. If any of these fields are a mismatch between meshed and the TGA platform, you will have errors in your NAT 60. And to fix those errors, you must go to the Manage Units or Modules section in your mesh system and update the data to match with TGA. The next file in this set is the NAT 80 file, which is called the client file or the student file. This file, as the name suggests, is the file that contains data on all the students who were a part of the training activity or who took part in the training activity in the collection period. This contains information on the student itself, which includes students' demographic information such as the gender, date of birth, name for encryption, student ID, indigenous status identifiers, and others, and also contains students' USI and address details. All this information comes from the student profile page in the mesh system. Any issues in the NAT 80 file would mean that you would need to go to the student profile page and edit the respective field accordingly. USI is one important field that gets captured in NAT 80. If you have too many blank USIs for your students in the NAT files, NCVR may trigger an error or warning where you may need to go and update the USIs in the mesh platform. NAT 85, which is the next file, is linked to the previous file and is called the client postal details file or the student's postal details file. This file contains information on the postal address details for the student, which includes the address details as well as the contact details for client's current postal address. Again, the information comes from the student profile page. Any issues in NAT 85 would require you going to the student profile page and updating the address and contact details accordingly. Next two files are called the NAT 90 and NAT 100 files. These are two files where the data can be null or there could not be any data in these two files and it is still acceptable. NAT 90, which is client disability file, is a file that gets data only if there is a student where you have recorded a disability in the collection period. If no student in your RTO has reported any disability or any disability has not been recorded, NAT 90 will not have any data. NAT 100 is called the client prior educational achievement file. This file contains data only if you have recorded any prior education achievement or education qualification history under the student profile page. If there is no data as such, NAT 100 will again be blank. However, these two files must be there in the zip folder even though they are blank. NAT 120 is called the training activity or enrollment file. This is one of the most critical files in these set of 10 NAT files as it contains information on all the previous files that we've just talked about. This file contains the RTO data, the program, subject, student, as well as the student training activity related data all in one. The data for this file primarily comes from the student results page in the system. The elements that this file includes can range from activity start date, end date, to funding source nationals, activity outcomes, along with the subject and course details. If you have any issues in NAT 120, most likely you will need to update data on the student results page. NAT 130, which is the last file in the set of 10 NAT files, is called the program completion file or the qualification completed file. This file contains data if there are any full program qualification completed in the collection period by any student. If no full qualifications were completed by any student in the collection period, NAT 130 will be empty. This file contains data such as the date program completed, the program identifier, along with the certificate details if a certificate was issued to the student. The data for this file primarily comes from the student course page or the generate certificate page if a certificate is generated. Now that we have understood all 10 files along with their data mapping in the mesh system, we can try and understand the submission tools and login details. So this is the link to the AVS portal that I've provided in this slide. This is the link where you can go and upload your data. If you're a new user, you will need to register for the first time for your organization. However, if you have done data reporting before, you can simply log in as a registered user for your training organization. Once you have registered or logged in to AVS, you will be able to upload your data, which is as per this screen here. So once you are in the AVS engine, you will see there is a set of filters that is available for you to select. Before you can start any upload, make sure you are under new collection so that you can upload a new set of files. Here you can select your relevant organization along with the training collection period. In this case, the training collection period is 2024 and it should be from January to December, which is the start of the year till the end of the year. Please make sure that you're not selecting any preliminary checks when you're uploading data for NCVR or final data submission, and also not ticking any checkbox such as the allow continuing outcomes for activity ending this year, as this can give you additional errors. So what you simply need to do is select the relevant year and click on add files. Once you click on add files, the system will allow you to add the zip folder that you have downloaded from mesh system. Once that is added, click on upload files. And after all the files are uploaded, you can click on validate to check the status for each file. If all is good and all your files are fully validated, you can simply go and finalize submission. So once the files are uploaded in AVS, this is what it may look like for you. Your files may have different statuses for each file. For example, some may be completely validated, which means there is no error or warning in that file and you can simply go ahead and submit. Others may have validated with the blue underline, which means there are some warnings for you to fix. And some may also be in red highlight, which means there are some errors in these files for you to fix. To understand and get more details on these errors and warnings, you can simply click on Export Details, which will export a CSV file for you to view the errors and warnings again in each record in each NAT file. So let's talk about some of the common errors and warnings that are available in NCVR and can appear in your NAT files. The very first common error is the wrong data format. So as suggested before, while talking about the data extraction process, if you're extracting data in state format, you will see errors in your NAT files. So the simple solution for this is going back to the mesh system and exporting the data using the correct parameters. Second most common error is the records containing illegal characters. This is one of the preliminary checks that the AVS engine performs just to make sure that the data format of the NAT files is accurate. If there are any invalid or hidden characters in your NAT files, the AVS engine will be unable to validate files and the pre-validation will fail. In this case, you need to use the text files that you have uploaded, and looking at the error report from NCVR, you need to remove any special characters or symbols from the mesh system for that relevant record and re-extract the data. Next, we have cross-year units reported with a valid final outcome. This is one of the most common errors that occurs for many clients in NAT 120. If your unit activity finish date is going cross-year or going in 2025 in this case, the unit cannot have a final outcome recorded for it such as C, NYC or RPL or CT even in that case. If the unit is going cross-year or ending in future, it should have the competency as CE or code 70, which means continuing enrollment. Similarly, if the unit activity finish date has ended in 2024, then the unit must have a final outcome. Next, we have incorrect combination of USI and funding source national. INTOF is only used when the student is an offshore overseas student. INTOF stands for International Offshore. So if the student origin is offshore and the student funding source national is 32, only then the system will automatically pass a USI value as INTOF, which is accepted. Other than that, if this combination is not correct, then you will need to record a valid USI for the student. Then we have the wrong funding source issues. For NCVR data submission, as discussed before, only fee for service or non-funded data is accepted. If you have any state-funded students, you must be reporting it via state training authorities and not via NCVR. So funding source nationals that are allowed for NCVR reporting are 31, 32, and 20 only. Please make sure that you have recorded this information correctly in NAT 120. Course finish date issue. Course finish date must be within the same year as the unit activity finish date. This error occurs when your course finish date does not align with the last unit activity finish date. The ideal scenario is that there must be at least one unit enrollment with competency date in the same year as the course finish date. To resolve these issues from NAT 120 and NAT 130, you need to go to student results page and update the unit enrollment details to change the unit competency or finish date and align it with the course finish date. OSPC or overseas postcode. This is one of the most common warnings that appears for most number of clients. Address suburb cannot be a known Australian suburb if the postcode is OSPC. This warning, what it ideally means is that if the student is an overseas offshore or onshore student, the student must have an overseas permanent address recorded as they are identified as overseas postcodes. If you do not have the overseas address for these students recorded, the system will report the Australian address and NCVR will identify the student as international student, which will give you the OSPC error. So if you want to get rid of this warning, what you simply need to do is record the overseas permanent address for the students where the country of residence will be other than Australia. Wrong unit ID or program ID. As I talked about this while mentioning NAT 30 and 60 as well, the unit IDs and program IDs must match the TGA listing. Student address or training location address issue. The suburban postcode mismatch is again a very common error as well as a warning that appears in NCVR. NCVR uses Australia Post listing for address for suburban postcode combination. If you have any errors or warnings where there is a mismatch, you must go to Australia Post and check the valid combination and update it accordingly. These are just some of the most common errors or warnings. You may have very specific errors or warnings appearing in your NAT files, which is why we are here to help. So what you can simply do is if there are any errors or warnings which you are unable to understand on how to resolve, please send an email to support@meshgroup.com.au and you should attach the NAT files in text format along with the error report from NCVR. Once we receive an email, we should be able to respond immediately looking at the errors, advising you on how this data can be fixed in the mesh system. Please note that we cannot fix the data on your behalf. We can only advise you on how this data can be fixed. Once you fix the data in RTOManager system, what you simply need to do is re-extract the NAT files and upload them in NCVR to see if the validation goes through again. And once your files are fully validated, your AVETMISS submission for 2024 can be completed. With this, we come to the end for the session today. Thank you everyone for your participation. And for further support and assistance, as I mentioned before, please just send an email to support@meshgroup.com.au and one of us should be able to assist. Any questions that you have for today's session or regarding AVETMISS, please feel free to write in chat along with the college name and your contact details so that we can reach out to you. Thank you.